Curtis, it is great to see you again, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm well, thanks. I appreciate you taking the time to participate in our fast-growing, getting a lot of attention leadership series. So it's great to, I'm sure our audience will love your perspective and your insights. And so I do appreciate the time. And I'd love you to start by just saying who you are and what you do.
Well, sure. I'd be happy to, Mark. My name is Curtis Cluff, and I am the Chief Executive Officer for a company called Envy Medical, which makes aesthetic, medical, and specialized skincare products, primarily for dermatology, plastic surgery, and medical spa clients and customers.
It's awesome. And you're doing pretty well now, I understand, huh?
The company is doing very well. We've spent a couple of years really laying a foundation, building a set of technologies that are very synergistic, and now that we have them in place, we've got our legacy brand, which is the Silk Pill Dermal Infusion. Silk Pill is a terrific device. It's all about dermal infusion, which is to deliver actives to the skin more potently and more effectively than you could in any other way for better therapeutic outcomes. And we have developed a set of skincare products to complement. They actually are terrific standalone products, but they work very well with the Silk Pill. And that combined, our Lumixo brand for hyperpigmentation and our Clarity MD brand for acne go hand in hand with the Silk Pill. Again, they work well on their own, but they really give us a strong presence in a doctor's office and an ability to really help practices, whether they're a traditional dermatologist or a cutting-edge medical spa. We help them build their revenue with a variety of treatments that they couldn't do as effectively otherwise, and to create better outcomes for their patients, better overall practice revenue.
Yeah, and that's really interesting, and there's a lot in that you just said. This obviously is a leadership series, so let's start simple. It's not a simple answer, but let's try to do a brief answer. What is your definition or your perspective then on leadership?
In terms of running a company, I think my perspective on leadership is that it starts with building a team that really understands each individual, their role, but really feel like they're a part of something bigger. If you can do that, create a good chemistry among that team, a good vision of where you're going and how they play an important part in that, but that they have enough respect for each other to not get territorial, but rather to really like working together and just doing what needs to be done to accomplish a goal, then you tend to see success follow. And I think leadership.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think leadership is fostering that environment and making sure that that happens.
Well, you've worked in a lot of different types of companies, and you took Envy almost from the start, if I'm not mistaken. How do you determine, a word we use a lot here is right fit. How do you determine the right fit leadership for an entrepreneur, and how is it similar and distinct from a larger corporation?
Well, yeah, you're right. I've worked in a variety of environments, from large Fortune 500 size corporations to now, really, this was a late-stage startup company when I came here to help them build. And it really does take a different set of perspective, a different set of tools. And I think, as you use the term, entrepreneurial environment is what you have here. You have to be able to work very flexibly. You have to make a lot more use of the resources you have. And you have to really kind of prioritize and figure out where you're going to build your core competency and strength, and then grow from there. But the other side of it is that everything you do today has a profound impact on what this company becomes tomorrow. In large Fortune 500 size companies that I worked in, you worked really hard to move that needle a little bit. In these, if you get the right people pushing together, you can make big moves and kind of quantum leaps in a much shorter period of time. And you can look back collectively as a team and say, we created that, and really take ownership of the successes.
It's interesting. I compare a lot of things to sports, but it came to mind because I was talking about Disney the other day. The Mighty Ducks movie, one of the things the coach did to all the players was he put them all together, close, put a rope around them, and said, okay, go. And I don't know if you remember that. And they realized that they had to go all in the same direction to get anywhere. Otherwise, they were all falling down.
Right. And they got that realization because of the tight quarters and the very real parameter or barrier that was being put around them. And working in a small company does that for you and to you, depending on your perspective. Some people feel constrained by it, but really, when you have that kind of a setting, you can see those barriers much more clearly. And if you're pulling together, you can really make a big difference much more quickly.
You know, I get a fair number of people that say they're in a large corp. I'd love to work in an entrepreneurial environment, and they're being sincere, but not everybody can handle it.
I think that's right. It is a very different set of skills that you have to develop and apply to a smaller company setting. And if you've come straight out of a large company setting, it can be a little bit of a culture shock for you, not to have the same sort of access to brand recognition, to internal resources, external resources that you're used to having. You really have to get in and do some of the groundwork yourself, and not worry so much about whether this is worthy of my station to be doing this task or that detail, but really to keep focused on the big picture. But if you can do that, it becomes liberating, because you start to remove those mores and boundaries that a large corporate environment might tend to put on you, and really to get much more laser focused on doing and taking care of the fundamentals, the basics that will lead to greater success.
Yeah, very smart. These days, and I believe you've gone international now, have you not?
We are. We're in about 40 countries around the world, and I think we can say fairly confidently that our professional skincare brand, Lumixil, is the first professional skincare brand to be actively marketed and sold in the 5 major skincare markets of the world, which is first and foremost North America, followed by Brazil, which overtook Japan. Japan falls third now in the world markets for skincare spending, and then China and Europe. So we're very excited to have a strong presence and a growing presence in all of those locations.
Well, that relates to what we were just talking about with leadership. How do you find leadership changes? Because these days, I don't know if I would call it easy, because it's not easy, but it's easier to go global faster with technology, et cetera, which is great. Something you didn't have before. But it does also take a certain type of leadership, whether it's a growing global business in general or even for a specific industry like yourself, to do that, right?
That's right. I think that the mistake that you see people make far too often when they look at going global is that they want to take the same formula, the same recipe that is working for them in one market, particularly here in the United States, and cookie cutter that over to other markets, and they will find a lot of frustration in that if they don't take the time to really listen to people in those markets. What we like to do is go and find a company that has all the resources that we would like to see in that particular market, and then we really rely on them to help us understand how best to approach this market. It takes some savvy to kind of weed through and ensure that they understand your model and that we're tailoring it appropriately. But you also do have to make some concessions and allowances for different ways to approach different markets in order to set yourself up for success.
Yes, I've worked with companies and everything from setting up a bank account to their marketing to their facilities to you name it. It's exciting, but it's a different ballgame.
It really is. In Brazil, as an example, we have found a great partner there, Libs Pharmaceutica. They're $1 billion company based in Brazil. And Brazil is a particularly tough market to get into, and to get into in the right way. You can get in by registering the products. It can take years. And even once you've done that, you can find that the import taxes will stifle your competitive advantage, or give you a competitive disadvantage compared to local products. What we were able to accomplish with them was to create a structure whereby we sourced third-party manufacturers, qualified them, engaged them, and brought them up to manufacture the products there local in the country, and then working with Libs to manage that manufacturing because they're a local presence. We manage that manufacturing with them as a partner, and have a mechanism to ensure that we share appropriately in the profit. You can do that there. It works really well. You have to be a lot more careful if you did that in a place like, for example, China, where it's a lot tougher to keep control of your manufacturing IP.
Yeah, I don't know if I should say this on video, but one of my first times going to China, I went to the embassy, and the fellow said there at the embassy said, the first thing I need to tell you is don't trust anybody.
He was giving me the advice from the embassy. Yeah, yeah. So
So,
he has eyes on the ground, and there's a lot of good people there and a lot of trustful people, but there's a difficult environment to keep a secure control of your IP from top to bottom, and you have to spend a lot more time and invest a little bit more money to do it that way. So you've got differences again in the different countries in terms of the way that you approach them.
no, it makes sense. Related to creating a good culture, as you talked about before, and we've talked about a little while back about about pride not necessarily being present. If you remember, we talked about that as much as it used to be. Um, you, how do you develop a winning culture? You started talking about it, but how do you develop a winning culture in an organization, especially that's growing quickly and growing internationally?
Well, early on, you've got to be very smart about assessing your needs and finding people who have very good complementary skills to you. You know, a great leader doesn't have all the skills typically. They have the ability to recognize what their skills are and recognize the needs that they need to complement their skills with, and then find those people. And it's more important early on for a company in the early growth phase, because you don't have the luxury of throwing a few people in at it and ensuring that you've covered everything that way. You've got to be sharp about understanding what you need. And then as you bring them in, you develop that winning culture, I think, by giving them, you hire quality people who are talented, and then you give them the latitude to accomplish. If you've hired the right people, they're going to take pride in what they're doing, and they're going to focus on areas where they can really make the biggest difference. And then you continue to complement those strengths as you add. And what you get over time is people who are very motivated about what they're doing. They love what they're doing because they're given the freedom to really excel in their areas of core strength, because we haven't put parameters and said, that's not your area, this is your area. So, for example, here, our chief scientific officer gets involved on a regular basis in social media because he has a lot to contribute in that area, and he loves being involved in it. And that works well for the company in terms of the type of professional brand we have. It's not something that you might have defined up front in terms of a skill set for a chief scientific officer. But he's got the skill set. He's very good at explaining things and breaking things down, whether for people creating the content or in areas where we have them interact directly with the public. And so that creates value for the brand. And it creates value for the position, and it creates successes and gives everyone sort of that feeling that we've got a winning culture to protect and preserve.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And you talk about social media. The impact I've found, and I keep hearing about social media on leaders and the actions and decisions they make or don't make is huge. What's been your experience on how it affects business and management? And I'll give you a quick example. I've been using this a lot lately. I had someone tell me, I used to be able to have a meeting with the people in my office. We would talk about the problems, talk face to face, and it was done. Now he says, I have a meeting in my office. It's on Twitter before the meeting's even over.
Right.
So how do you guys handle social media?
Well, we think the social media is an extremely important part of building brand awareness, building a brand image and a company image. So we tend to embrace it. I like for people at all levels of the company to be involved. We don't get upset when somebody is interacting on social media, even during work hours. We actually encourage it because we know that that is such a core part of driving value for the company. I don't know if you heard, it wasn't too long ago, just a few weeks ago, that L'Oreal made one of their recent acquisitions, probably just a couple weeks from their making their next, but one of the more recent ones that they made was a company that makes cosmetics called NYX, NYX Cosmetics. And the premium they paid for that company was pretty significant. And the reason that they cited for doing it is because they had done such a good job of building a strong digital footprint, which is a lot to do with the social media and with applying their marketing resources, although much less than larger companies. They applied them much more effectively because they applied them in low-cost, high-impact social media circles, and they involved people in their company at various levels in doing that. I think that is really indicative of what drives value for any company that interacts with the public. Certainly, companies that have consumer or even quasi-consumer products to offer.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that. It's certainly come a long way from when companies or people in companies used to say you can't get on the internet at work, huh?
It really has. It has in a lot of companies, and I think
Right.
those are the companies that are doing that because they're really seeing the value and the benefit. And there's some others who clearly need to catch up a little bit. But that was some of the executives from L'Oreal's observation was, this company was getting, more traction out of $500,000 of marketing spend than they were getting out of $10 million of marketing spend because of the way they were doing it. And it was eye-opening, and it made it such that they said we need to acquire that skill set in-house.
That's fantastic. Hey, what type of or what aspect of business do you enjoy the most?
I enjoy building brands and creating offerings that will have a significant impact on the way people interact with the company and the way that they feel about themselves. So we create products that are aesthetic medical products. So they may not specifically cure cancer, although the argument can be made for our sunscreens. If you use them regularly, you may well prevent a cancer, and it's encouraged. But moreover, they help people feel more confident and better about themselves. And we really like the fact that we've created some products and technologies that are really effective at doing that in a way that is highly effective and non-invasive. There's not strong reactions or side effects related to them. So we've changed the way that the medical profession has interacted with people, and the kinds of solutions that they're providing that help address concerns that are very real concerns for the patient and consumer population. But maybe we're underappreciated for being really well concerned 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, that's awesome. Has there been one memorable, most challenging leadership experience you've had in your career?
One memorable or most challenging leadership experience. Yeah, I certainly have worked in environments that have been stressful in the dynamics that are going on. I've worked in a couple of environments that were kind of viewed as turnaround assignments. One of the companies that I went to was, I went there when they were losing a great deal of money. Some very poor decisions had been made by members of the management team prior to my arrival there. Some of those people had been, recently exited, but there was a lot of angst and stress involved in cleaning those things up and moving forward. And what I found there and have applied in a few instances since is, we peeled back all of the noise and said, let's get back to basics. What do we do? What do we do well? And let's stop spending on ornate marketing messages until we're really sure what our message should be. So we're going to, kind of peel back the losses right there temporarily and apply a back to basic strategy. What can we do that's the most impactful? And as you start doing that, you get the opportunity to do what a startup would do, which is to start from scratch and then build on your successes. And what we found when we did that is that we were able to take a company from losing 30% of their sales on the bottom line. It's not easy to do, but it can be done, I can tell you, to a company that was actually making a 25 to 30% return within 18 to 24 months on the EBITDA line. So, that was a challenging environment, but it was very rewarding to see that when you apply, correct principles, regardless of the setting, you tend to see that you get good results, and faster than you might think you would get them at the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's 100% right. There's a reason GE is selling off everything and focusing on their strengths as well. Short answer questions, little more personal, if you will. Not too personal, but a little more personal. Do you have a leader you've most admired, past or present?
I've had a couple of people who really made a big difference in my life. A gentleman that I worked with who you may appreciate, is a Canadian fellow. His name was Ron Smith. He came out of Honeywell. Really was the person who helped me understand the importance, because it's how he treated me, of you look for the best, you hire the best, and then you treat them like they're the best.
Right.
If you get premium people and you make them a part of the process, both in terms of their involvement and their reward, you will have a more satisfied team and a better result. And he really lived that mantra, treated people with a great deal of respect and courtesy, even when we were going through difficult times. He stuck to that principle, and I admired that a great deal.
Well, that's a good Canadian for you. I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, do you have a favorite activity or sport?
I love basketball. Love to play it. Although some days it's frustrating for me these days. I don't play it the way I used to. But every once in a while, I put a few good shots together, and I feel good again.
Yes, I know the feeling. I'm not skating as fast as I used to either.
I love
do you have a favorite movie or TV show?
I really have been enjoying watching a TV show called Suits. I don't know if you have seen all Suits, but I love that show. I think it's really well written. And I'm always anxious to see the next episode after the last one's ended.
Very cool. How about music? Type of music?
I like all kinds of music, but I grew up in the '80s, so I find myself kind of returning to some of those rock bands from the '80s quite often. And I think that there's something therapeutic about eating foods from your childhood and listening to music from your childhood. It can really help you kind of get to a simpler place to focus from.
It goes back to your comment about the basics. It does bring your soul back, or whatever it does. It makes you feel good. And I was going to ask you, favorite food?
Favorite food? I love. There is a restaurant that I'm sure you'll be wanting to meet me for lunch or dinner at one of these days soon, called Crustaceans in L.A., kind of in the Santa Monica area. Have you been to Crustaceans before?
I've not. I definitely heard of it. Yeah.
Make something there called. They have roasted crab with garlic noodles, and I think that right now that's my favorite thing.
I'm marking it down, man.
Really, really good.
Hey, listen, I totally appreciate your time. It's great stuff, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Well, I look forward to seeing you too. I appreciate our association over the years. You've had lots of insight and wisdom for me. I hope I've been helpful in this interview, and we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Curtis.
Thank you.